औज़ुबिल्लाहि मिनश्शैतानिर्रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम इन्नल्लाहा व मलाइकतहु यसल्लूना अलन नबी या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनू सल्लु अलैहि व सल्लिमू तस्लीमा अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मद बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अन फ़ातिमतुज़्ज़हरा अलैहिस्सलाम बिन्त रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि वसल्लम बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अन फ़ातिमतुज़्ज़हरा अलैहिस्सलाम बिन्त रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि अन्नहा क़ालत दख़ल अलैया अबी रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़ी बाज़िल अय्याम फ़क़ाला अस्सलामु अलैका या फ़ातिमा फ़क़ुल्तु अलैका अस्सलाम क़ाला इन्नी अजिदु फ़ी बदनी ज़ौफ़ा फ़क़ुल्तु लहू उईज़ुका बिल्लाहि या बताहु मिनज़्ज़ौफ़ फ़क़ाल या फ़ातिमतु लीतीनी बिल्किसार यमानी फ़ग़त्तैनी बिही फ़अतैतुहु बिल्किसार यमानी फ़ग़त्तैतु बिही वसिरतु अंज़ुरु इलैहि वइज़ा वजहु यतलअल्लाहु कअन्नहुल बदरु फ़ी लैलति तमामिही व कमालिही फमा कानत इल्ला साअतन वइज़ा बिवलिदिल हसन अलैहिस्सलाम क़द अक़बला फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या उम्मा फ़क़ुल्तु वअलैका अस्सलाम या क़ुर्रत ऐनी व समरत फ़बादी फ़क़ाल या उम्मा इन्नी अशम्मु इंदकी राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु जद्दी रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़क़ुल्तु नअम इन्ना जद्दका तहतल किसाय फ़अक़बल हसन अलैहिस्सलाम नहवल किसाय फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या जद्दाह या रसूलल्लाह अताज़नुनी अन अदख़ुल मअका तहतल किसाय फ़क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या साहिब हौज़ी क़द अज़िनतु लका फ़दख़ला मअहू तहतल किसाय मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद फमा कानत इल्ला साअतन वइज़ा बिवलदिल हुसैन क़द अक़बल वक़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या उम्मा फ़क़ुल्तु वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या क़ुर्रत ऐनी व समरत फ़बादी फ़क़ाल अली या उम्मा इन्नी अशम्मु इंदकी राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु जद्दी रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़क़ुल्तु नअम इन्ना जद्दका व अख़ाका तहतल किसाय फ़दन हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम नहवल किसाय फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या जद्दा अस्सलामु अलैका या मन अख़्तारहुल्लाह अताज़रुनी अन अकूना मअकुमा तहतल किसाय फ़क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या वलदी व या शाफ़िअ उम्मती क़द अज़िनतु लका फ़दख़ला मअहुमा तहतल किसाय अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मद फ़अक़बल इंदा ज़ालिका अबुल हसन अली इब्न अबी तालिब फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या बिन्त रसूलिल्लाह फ़क़ुल्तु वअलैका अस्सलाम या अबल हसन व या अमीरल मोमिनीन फ़क़ाल या फ़ातिमतु इन्नी अशम्मु इंदकी राइहतन तय्यबतन कअन्नहा राइहतु अख़ी व इब्न अम्मी रसूलिल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि फ़क़ुल्तु नअम हुआ मौलदैका तहतल किसाय फ़अक़बल अली अलैहिस्सलाम नहवल किसाय फ़क़ाल अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूलल्लाह अताज़ुननी अन अकूना मअकुम तहतल किसाय क़ाल लहू वअलैका अस्सलाम या अख़ी व या वसी व ख़लीफ़ती व साहिबल वाई क़द अज़िनतु लका फ़दख़ला अली अलैहिस्सलाम तहतल किसाय सुम्मा अतैतु नहवल किसाय वक़ुल्तु अस्सलामु अलैका या अबताह या रसूलल्लाह अताज़ुननी अन अकूना मअकुम तहतल किसाय क़ाल वअलैका अस्सलाम या बिन्ती व या बिज़अती क़द अज़िनतु लके फ़दख़लतु तहतल किसाय मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद फ़लम्मा अक्तमलना जमीअन तहतल किसाय अख़ज़ा बि रसूलिल्लाह बितरफ़िल किसाय मअहुमा बियदिही युमना इलस समाअ फ़क़ाल अल्लाहुम्मा इन्ना हाउलाइ अहलु बैती व ख़ासती व हामती लहमुहुम लहमी व दमुहुम दमी युअलिमुनी मा युअलिमुहुम व यहज़ुनुनी मा यहज़ुनुहुम अना हर्बुन लिमन हारबहुम व सिल्मुन लिमन सालमहुम وعدو لمن آداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا زمدية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبرائيل يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعادن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبالها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال جبرائيل يا رب أتأذن لي أحبط للأرض ليكون محمد سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك الثناء ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مهدية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فأتأذني يا رسول الله. فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل ومعنا تحت الكساء فقال لي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فقال علي النبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوس هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة النجيم ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة النجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محبوم إلا فرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخذلها كل شيء وذللها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي يزاله كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحتك الإثم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك واستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك وأن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاض متذلل خاش أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانيا في جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وصلك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عظم سلطانك ولا مكانك وخفي مكرك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد للذنوب غافرا ولا لقباه ساترا ولا لشيء من عمل القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فاده من البلاء يقلته وكم من إسار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفاته وكم من سلاء جميل لست أعلنه نشرته اللهم عظم بلائي وفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقادت بي أغلالي وحبسني النفع بعد أعمالي وقدرتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها ومثالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفزني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهوتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في الأحوال كلها رؤوفا ولي في جميع أمور أطوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أعترض فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحجة ولم في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد آتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري وفكني من شد وساقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ودقة جلدي ودقة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي حبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي या इलाही व सय्यदी व रब्बी अतुराका मुअज़्ज़बी व नादिका बाद तौहीदिका व बाद मन तवा अलैहि क़ल्बी मिन मारिफ़तिका व लहज बिही लिसानी मिन ज़िक्रिका व तक़दहु ज़मीरी मिन हुब्बिका व बाद सिद्क़ इतराफ़ी व दुआई ख़ाज़िन लिरबूबियतिका हैहात अंत अक्रम मिन अन तुज़य्या मन रब्बैतहु औ तुबैदा मन अद्दैतहु औ तुशरदा मन अवैतहु औ तुसल्लिम अलल बलाइ मन कफ़ैतहु व रहिबतहु वलैत शेरी या सय्यदी व इलाही व मौलाया अतुसल्लितुन नार अला वजूहिन ख़र्रत लिअज़मतिका साजिदा वला अलसुनिन नतक़त बितौहीदिका सादिक़ा व बिशुक्रिका मादिहा वला क़ुलूब इअतराफ़त बिइलाहियतिका मुहक़्क़क़ता वला ज़माइरत हवत मिनल इल्मि बिका हत्ता सारत ख़ाशिया वला जवारिया सात इला औतानि तअब्बुदिका ताया वशारत बिस्तिग़फ़ारिका मुज़निना मा हाक़क़ ज़न्नु बिका वला उक़बिलना बिफ़ज़लिका अन्का या करीम या रब्बे वअन्त तालमु ज़ाफ़ियन क़लीलिन मिन बलाइ दुनिया व क़ुबातिहा व मा यजरी फ़ीहा मिनल मकारिहि अला अहलिहा अला अन्ना ज़ालिका बलाउम व मकरूहुम क़लीलुम मक़सहु यसीरुम बक़ाहु क़सीरुम मुद्दतुहु फ़कैफ़ तिमाली लिबलाइल आख़िरति व जलील वक़ूइल मकारिहि फ़ीहा व हुवा बलाउन ततूलु मुद्दतहु व यदूम मक़ामहु वला युख़फ़फ़ु अन अहलिहि लिअन्नहु अन ला यकूनु इल्ला अन ग़ज़बिका व इंतिक़ामिका व सख़तिका व हाज़ा मा ला तक़ूमु लहु अस्समावातु वल अर्ज़ या सय्यदी फ़कैफ़ ली व अना अब्दुका अज़्ज़ईफ़ु अज़्ज़लीलु अल-हक़ीरु अल-मिस्कीनु अल-मुस्तकीन या इलाही व रब्बी व सय्यदी व मौलाय लिया उमूर इलैका अश्कू व लिमा मिन्हा अज़िज्जु व अब्की लिअलीमिल अज़ाब व शिद्दतिही अम लितूलिल बलाइ व मुद्दतिही फ़लइन सय्यरतनी लिलउक़ूबाति मा अदाइका व जमाअत बैनी व बैन अहलि बलाइका व फ़र्रक़त बैनी व बैन अहिब्बाइका व औलियाइका फ़हबनी या इलाही व सय्यदी व मौलाया व रब्बी सबरतु अला अज़ाबिका फ़कैफ़ अस्बिरु अला फ़िराक़िका व हबनी सबरतु अला हर्रि नारिका फ़कैफ़ अस्बिरु अनिन नज़र इला करामतिक अम कैफ़ अस्कुनु फ़िन्नारि व रजाई अफ़्वका फ़बिइज़्ज़तिका या सय्यदी व मौलाया उक़सिमु सादिक़न लइन तरक्तनी नातिक़न लअज़िज़न्ना इलैका बैन अहलिहा ज़जीरल आमिलीन वला अस्रख़न्ना इलैका सराख़ल मुस्तस्रिक़ीन वला अब्कियन्ना अलैका बुका अल-फ़ाक़िदीन वला उनादियन्नका इन्ना कुन्ता या वलियल मोमिनीन या आयाता आमालिल आरिफ़ीन या ग़ियासल मुस्तग़ीसीन या ग़ियासल मुस्तग़ीसीन या ग़ियासल मुस्तग़ीसीन या हबीब क़ुलूबिस सादिक़ीन व या इलाहल आलमीन अफ़तुराका सुब्हानका या इलाही व बिहम्दिका तस्मउ फ़ीहा सौत अब्दिन मुस्लिमिन सुजना फ़ीहा बिमुख़ालफ़तिही व ज़ाक़ तामा अज़ाबिहा बिमासियतिही व हुबिसा बैन अदबाक़िहा बिजुर्मिही व जरीरतिही व हुवा यज़िज्जु इलैका ज़जीजा मुअम्मिल रहमतिका व युनादीका बिलिसानि अहलि तौहीदिका व यतवस्सलु इलैका बिरबूबियतिका या मौलाया फ़कैफ़ यब्क़ा फ़िल अज़ाबि व हुवा यरजू मा सलफ़ मिन हिल्मिका अम कैफ़ तुलिबुहुन नारु व हुवा यामलु फ़ज़लका व रहमतिक अम कैफ़ युहरिक़ुहु लिहिबुहा व अन्ता तस्मउ सौतहु व तरा मकानहु अम कैफ़ यश्तमिलु अलैहि ज़फ़ीरुहा व अन्ता तालु मुज़ाफ़ह अम कैफ़ यतक़लक़लु बैन अदबाक़िहा व अन्ता तालमु सिद्क़ह अम कैफ़ तज़जुरुहु ज़बानियतुहु व हुवा नदीका या रब्बह अम कैफ़ यरजू फ़ज़लका फ़ी इत्क़िही मिन्हा फ़तत्रुकुहु फ़ीहा हैहात मा ज़ालिका ज़न्नु बिका वलल मारूफ़ु मिन फ़ज़लिका वला मुजबिउन लिमा अमलत बिहिल मुवाहिदीन मिन बिर्रिका व इहसानिका فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملاها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها الماندين وأن تجلى ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستعون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي هتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة عملت بالإسماءات الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواده وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأنت في حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي مولاي مالك قياما بيدي ناصيتي يا عليما بذري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك واسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمولة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأوردي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه مؤولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قبل خدمتك جواره واجدل على العزيمة جمانه وحبلي الجد في خشيتك والدمام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرع إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين واشتاق إلى قلبك في المشتاقين وأدم منك ذنوب المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم من أرادني بسوء فارده ومن كادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك واقربهم منزلة منك وقسهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجد لي بجودك وعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وقلني أسرتي واغفر لي زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة وإليك يا رب نسحبت وجهي وإليك يا رب مددت يدي فبعزتك تجب لك لي دعائي فبلغني منايا ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا या सरी अर्रज़ा या सरी अर्रज़ा इग़फ़िर लिमन ला यमलिकु इल्ला दुआ फ़इन्नका फ़आलुन लिमा तशा या मन इस्महु दवाउ व ज़िक्रुहु शिफ़ा व तातुक़िनहम इरहम रास मालिहिर रजा व सिलाहुल बुका या साबिग़न नियाम या दाइफ़न निक़म या नूरुल मुस्तहिशीन फ़ी ज़ुल्म या लिमन ला युअल्लिमु सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मद वफ़अल बिमा अंता अहलहु व सल्लल्लाहु अला रसूलिहि वल अइम्मतिल मयामीन मिन आलिहि व सल्लमा तस्लीमन कसीरा अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला
रहमल्लाहु मन क़रा सूरतुल फ़ातिहा बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम There is a request for Surah Fatiha for the following marhumin: Marhuma Narjis Bhai, Peer Bhai; Marhuma Khairun Nisa, Pyar Ali Jadavji; Marhum Mohsin Kamalia, who passed away in Dubai today; Marhum Ramzan Ali Farishta ibn Rajab Ali Farishta; and Marhuma Fatima Farishta, daughter of Abdul Hussain Sagarwala. To recite Surah Fatiha for these marhumin of today's sponsors, Nisar Bhai and the Nani family. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, as-Sirat al-Ladhina an'amta alayhim ghayri al-maghdubi wala-ddallin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن الناس من يعبد الله على حرف فإن أصابه خير اطمأن به وإن أصابته فتنة انقلب على وجهه خسر الدنيا والآخرة ذلك هو الخسران المبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات भेज मामा. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. The verse that I recited for you is from Surah Hajj, ayat number 11. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat talks about an important concept which inshallah will tie into this Isa alayhi Sawab Majlis that we are commemorating for the marhumin whose names we had recited in the beginning. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to elevate the status of these marhumin, give them a place in the Jawara of Ma'asumin alayhimus salatu wassalam. Loud salawat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat talks about an important concept, and that is that among the people are those who worship Allah on the very fringe. On the very fringe, meaning ala harfin, that they're holding on to a very small or thin thread as far as their ibadat is concerned. He said, if good fortune befalls him, he is content with it. And if an ordeal visits him, he makes a turnabout to become a loser in the world and in the hereafter, and that is a manifest loss. Unfortunately, many of us, our iman is not as strong as the iman the way it should be. And we sometimes take this iman for granted. We think merely just doing the things that we are doing is enough to prove the fact that we have iman and we have faith. But this iman has to grow every single day and has to get stronger every single day. On the opposite, sometimes what happens, our iman starts to fail and it starts to get thin day as the day passes by, as the days pass by. Here, people start questioning why bad things happening to me. Why this ordeal visited me? Why did I go through this, unfortunate incident, or this misfortune visited me, and so on and so forth. And all of these terrible incidents that happen, what happens? It tests our iman and our faith. If you go back in the history, those who were the first Muslims, those who brought iman, amongst them was Ammar Yasir. Ammar was a very young man in the time of Rasulullah. His parents were also the first to embrace the religion of Islam. And when they were persecuted and eventually they were killed, they were considered to be the first shuhada of Deen Mubin Islam, who were killed primarily because of the religion of Islam that they had embraced. It did not hinder one bit as far as the iman of Ammar is concerned. Why? He looked at that his parents are now being killed. All his parents had to do was to give in to the commands of their masters or those people who were persecuting them, but they chose not to. And after their death, Ammar had all the license in the world to go ahead and declare that, okay, I don't want to follow this because my parents just died for that. And he could have easily, or this event could have easily affected him, where he would have turned around and said, I denounce this religion as well. But there we see the steadfastness where it meant the most, and Ammar proved that no, none of these events are going to go ahead and shake as far as my deen and my iman is concerned, even though they were newly converted to the religion of Islam. When you're newly converted, it's easy. You would think that sometimes it's easy for them to leave the path and go back to, especially if they had been worshipping something other than this religion. But therefore we find that many of us today as well, when a misfortune visits us, right away we start questioning our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We start questioning. We might not say it from our tongues, that lest it will be considered kufr if we were to utter these words. But at least the thought goes through our mind sometimes, and we start questioning as to why bad things are happening to me. Some people show this dissent in different ways. For example, they start abandoning their prayers. They'll stop praying. They'll stop fasting. They'll stop giving the sadaqat and the khums and so on and so forth. They'll stop with the wajibat, for example. They won't denounce the religion with their tongues, but they'll stop practicing the deen. This, of course, is amal. Iman is separate than amal. But iman has a lot to do with this amal. And this amal has a lot to do with this iman. They both cannot be separated. They got to be together. You only have iman, but the person never acted on this iman all their life. How good is this iman? You practice, but you didn't believe in it. You didn't have any faith. How good is this amal when it's lacking this iman? So therefore, it is important for us to hold on to these things. So some people, they'll stop fasting. Some people, they'll stop praying. You say, what's good? What's the use? If I'm being treated like this, if I'm being mistreated, if I'm losing all of this, then what's good that I'm going to go ahead and pray to that Rabb and this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example. These thoughts come and a lot of people abandon the ibadah as if they're thinking that this ibadat is a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This ibadat is something which I am paying as my dues to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This ibadat is something which if I didn't do it, na'udhu billah, something will be, less from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No, all of these are his false understandings and nothing beyond that. These are the people that Quran is addressing. He says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ. These are the people who are worshipping Allah on the fringe, on this edge. That the moment a good deed or good fortune arrives, right away they're content. But the moment they're put through some difficulty, they go astray and they leave everything behind as if none of these things really matter to them. So this is where you're tested. You got to make sure that as every day goes by, your iman is getting stronger and stronger. It's strengthening. Why? On the other side, there are many deviants and there are many evils out there which are trying to lead you. And the biggest of the enemies is this Iblis and Shaitan. That is with us all. And it's his job to go ahead and introduce these ideas to us. Waswas, as the Quran says, talks about yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, that he does the waswas in the hearts so subtly that we sometimes don't even realize. I think this is the voice of our inner conscious sometimes. So, in the salat does no good to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If anything, this salat does good to you. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. It stops you and keeps you from committing evil and getting your hands tainted with indecency. Some people are barely holding on to deen, as mentioned in this ayat. But we need to constantly understand this. We need to constantly remind ourselves and understand this, that maut and hayat is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a loved one leaves this world, we shouldn't go ahead and start complaining. And if we are dealt in a way where we feel that it is something which is going against us and so is fine, then this is all mashiyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Maulana, sometimes you just label it mashiyat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we shouldn't question. And we should just go ahead and do sabr and we should not worry about it. There must be a reason behind it. Absolutely there's a reason behind it. Sometimes you and I do not need to know that reason. But if you really want to know that reason, you look at these small little things that happen in the world to you. There are two types of people. Those who, when they face calamities, they brush it off, the dust from their clothes, and they stand up again. They stand up stronger than they were before. And then the second type of people are, if they are oppressed, and if they are forced into something, and they continuously face failure, they say, what's the use of it? Let's just give up. You find these two types of people in the world as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He puts us through these tests with the life or with death, this is only to do what? The ayat of Quran gives that answer. You all know this ayat. Surah Mulk. Second ayat says, Alladhi khalaqal mawta wal hayata liyabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala. He's the one who created maut and hayat. He's the one who bestows maut and hayat. He created maut and hayat liyabluwakum, so that He may test you with it. Imtihan. And this test, so that what? liyabluwakum ayyukum aktharu amala? No, ahsanu amala. So that may test you that which one of you comes forth with the most beautiful and the ahsan of their amal is concerned. Not necessarily the aksar and the quantity of these amals. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam gave further clarity toward this worldly life of ours. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, Man ayqana annahu yufariqul ahbab. The one who has firm belief that one day he will be separated from his loved ones, wa yaskunu turab, and he will be resting under the graves, or in this grave of his, under the turab, under the sand, wa yuwajihul hisab, and he will face accountability, wa yastaghni amma khallafa, and doesn't need, he is mustaghni from that which he has left behind, as far as the wealth is concerned, as far as his children are concerned. وَيَفْتَقِرُ إِلَى مَا قَدَّمَ, and he needs what he has already sent forth. Imam says, what you have in this world, you're mustaghni, meaning you're self-sufficient. You don't need what you have in this world. But what you're in need is what you have already sent forth. إِذَا كَانَ حَرِيًّا بِقِصَرِ الْعَمَلِ وَطُولِ الْعَمَلِ. Then this person should cut down on his desires, and he should start increasing as far as his amal are concerned. Look, this is the reality. That a day will come, and this is with yaqeen, all of us can say, that we will leave our ahbab, our loved ones, our family members. As we recited the Surah Fatiha for the marhumin tonight, they were the loved ones of these individuals, and they departed. And many of us have lost loved ones as well. So we all know this reality very well. Yufariqul ahbab, as Amir al-Mu'mineen is saying. That you will leave your ahbab. Ahbab, the plural of, those who you love. Secondly, Imam al-Asad says, وَيُسْكُنُ التُّرَابِ. That is also inevitable. We believe in burial, so we will be under this load of sand and this load of khaq and this matti. Yuwajihul hisab. You will also be facing some sort of accountability right away in your grave when Munkar and Nakir come, and then of course eventually in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Imam reminds us of a reality. You are mustaghni from that wealth and that children that you have in this world. They can't do anything for you. You're mustaghni. But what you do rely upon is that which you have already sent forth to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is something which you are in need of. When you have all of these things clear, there's no doubt about it. Does anyone doubt about yufariqul ahbab? No. Does anyone doubt about being in the grave? Does anyone doubt about muhasabah nafs tomorrow? Maybe you might doubt about that. But there are so many ayat that prove that fact that there will be accountability. When all of these things are none that you are doubting, then why would you go ahead and rely on that which you're leaving behind and not worry about that which you are sending forth? Imam says, when you have all this in front of you, kana hariyan yaqsiru biqasr al-amal wa tul al-amal. Then this person should cut down on his desires and should increase as far as his amal and the actions are concerned. I've recited this hadith before, but it is such a profound and all-encompassing, which comes from the kalam of Luqman Hakim. Luqman, as you know, we don't know his status, whether he was a Nabi or not, but nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dedicated an entire chapter in Quran known as Suratul Luqman. Chapter 31, Surah Luqman. The entire chapter is named after him. While there aren't chapters named after many great personalities, there isn't a chapter after every Nabi. There isn't even a chapter after every Ulul Azm Nabi. Forget about all the Anbiya. You have chapter Muhammad, you have chapter Ibrahim, you have chapter Nuh, but you don't have chapter Musa, nor do you have chapter Isa. You have chapter Maryam, and you have chapter Hud, but you don't have any chapters which are after the rest of the Ulul Azm Anbiya, or those Anbiya who were superior to, for example, Hazrat Hud and the other Anbiyas that are mentioned. So therefore we find over here is the same case. Luqman may not have been a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as many of the riwayat do suggest that. But nonetheless, There's a chapter named after him. And it's a chapter where he is giving wa'az and he is giving advices to his child. But here, this is a hadith which is quoted by our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. So you won't find this in Surah Luqman. So don't go looking for this in Surah Luqman, because this is not part of the ayat of Quran of Surah Luqman. Rather, this is a hadith narrated by sixth Imam quoting Luqman al-Hakim. Here another question arises. Did Imam really need to say Luqman said this? If Imam had just quoted these words, we would have taken it from Imam. Imam, you yourself is authority to us. You don't need that Luqman al-Hakim said this. But nonetheless, Imam quotes him. He says what? Luqman said this. قال Luqman al-Hakim لِإِبْنِهِ. But this is not part of the Quran. اعلم إني or أني خدمت 400 Nabi. Know this, that I have served 400 Anbiya. This also suggests that he wasn't a Nabi, because he's serving 400 Anbiya. He could have introduced himself to be amongst the Nabi, but he didn't. He said, I've served 400 Anbiya, meaning he lived long enough to meet and visit, and not just meet, but to serve 400 Anbiya as well. And then he said, فَأَخْتَرْتُ مِنْ قَلَامِهِمْ أَرْبَعَةَ كَلِمَاتٍ. After having met 400 Nabi, I took 4 words of wisdom from all of them. This is the summary of all that I have learned from 400 Nabi. Now, this will really be something. You meet 400 infallibles, because every Nabi is ma'soom. And then you learn from one Nabi, that is great, but you learn from 400, and then you give and present this usara, this summary of what you have learned. There's got to be a great piece of advice as far as that is concerned. So what did he say? He said, I learned 4 things from 400 Anbiya. وَهِيَ إِن كُنْتَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ فَحْفِظْ قَلْبَكَ. When you're standing up in prayer, protect your heart. Now, of course, there's a detailed explanation of each one of them. I'm not going to go into that. Inshallah, relying on your own understanding of this hadith. It says, إِن كُنْتَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ فَحْفِظْ قَلْبَكَ. When you're worshipping, protect your heart. Number 2, he said, إِن كُنْتَ عَلَى الْمَائِدَةِ فَحْفِظْ حَلْقَكَ. When you're sitting on the dastarkhan and the sufra, table of food, فَحْفِظْ حَلْقَكَ. Protect your throat. إِن كُنْتَ فِي بَيْتِ الْغَيْرِ فَحْفِظْ عَيْنَكَ. When you visit someone else's house, protect your eyes. And then lastly, إِن كُنْتَ بَيْنَ الْخَلْقِ فَحْفِظْ لِسَانَكَ. And when you are amongst the people, protect your tongue. Protect your heart when you're praying. Protect your mouth when you're eating on the dastarkhan. Protect your eyes when you are visiting someone's house. There might be na-mahram over there. And lastly, protect your lisan when you are amongst the people. I'll leave. This hadith itself requires in-depth analysis, but it'll take me away from my discussion for the night. But I want you to all ponder over these words of wisdom of Luqman al-Hakim. That is the usara and the summary of what he has learned from studying under 400 Anbiya. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The discussion was, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ, amongst the people are those يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَلَى حَرْفٍ, those who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the fringe, on the edge. So easily you can change their belief, and you can take them away from it. There's a story that Agha Qarachi narrates about an alim-e-din from Isfahan. His name was Agha Mustafa Bahishti. He was a Imam Jum'ah of Isfahan as well, a great alim, very pious indeed. He said this great man once went with a caravan to perform the ziyarat of Syed al-Shuhada. As he arrived at the border of Iran and Iraq, they had all the paperwork and everything was in line, and they were about to cross. The customs asked him to, ask his wife to show her face. And, he said, well, there were ladies who would do this stuff, and she had already gone through this. The man said, no, I want to see her face as well. He said, but what's the need? The paperwork is correct, and the lady inspector has already seen her, and, what's the need? I don't want just na-mahram looking at my wife's face. He said, well, this is my decision. I'm the customs officer. If you want to cross this, then you're going to have to do this. He said he waited for 3 days, but that customs officer didn't change his mind. He recited the ziyarat of Imam Hussain from the border, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, and he left. He went back home. He didn't go for the ziyarat. He said he came back to Isfahan. He narrated this story. And then after a while, he was able to go for the ziyarat of Imam Rada in Mashhad. He went for the ziyarat of Imam Rada. He said, Imam Rada, thank you for accepting me as your Zair while I couldn't be accepted as the Zair of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And of course, his story was known and famous amongst the people. He comes back home, and after a while, he dies. His son, whose name is Hassan Bahishti, he said, my father died. I wrote it down, for example, on a Tuesday at 2 in the morning, 2:20 a.m. He said, because it was 2 in the morning, I didn't want to get the family disturbed at that time. So I did not inform them right away, but I wrote it down the moment that he died. You know how hospitals also mark it down, the time of the demise and everything. He said, I wrote it down, the day and the time of his demise. I sat next to my father's dead body. I covered it with a piece of cloth. I recited Quran all night upon him for barakat. And in the morning, I informed the family. They came and we went through with Tashi and Janaza. And because he was a great alim, there was a great majma of people that came for his Tashi and Janaza. He said, well, I finished all of that. After a couple of days, a young man was looking for me. And then he found me because his son, Bahishti's son, was also Imam Jum'ah of Isfahan, so it wasn't that difficult to find him. If someone comes looking for, Imam Jum'ah of New Jersey and Imam Jum'ah of Masjid-e-Ali, it would not be a difficult task for them to find him. So he said, he ran into me and he said, did your father die on that day at 2:20 a.m.? He said, by God, I have not said this to anyone. How do you know this? He said, in my dream, I visited the shrine of Imam Rada. As I was doing the ziyarat of Imam Rada, I saw Imam Rada was leaving his shrine. I said, Maula, where are you going? Imam said, Hassan Bahishti just died. I'm going for his, ziyarat. Why? Because Imam Rada said, we have made promise to our believers that whoever comes for our ziyarat in Mashhad, in our Mazlumiyat, we will visit them on 3 occasions. At the time of their death, in their qabr, and on Sirat. He said, he just passed away. I'm going for his ziyarat. He said, I woke up at that time and I woke up right away at that time of the night. I looked up the time. The time was about 2:20 a.m. I wrote it down. Hassan Bahishti said, he took out the piece of paper upon which he had written the time of the death of his father as well. And he said, both of these timings meshed. He said, of course, this is possible. That Imam Rada comes for the ziyarat of those who do not surrender. They're not living on the fringe. They're not living on the edge. Even if their ziyarat is compromised, but he knew that there will be haram that would be involved in it. He refused to go. He just did salam to Imam from the border and then he came back. He did not let that to be a means of shaking his madhab and his deen. And this is how Imam Rada visited him at the time of his demise. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's further discussion in all of this, but I'll bring you towards the close. Masumeen also, of course, their iman is iman kamil. Their iman is not like ours, which is on the fringe. Their iman is iman kamil. But nonetheless, they are sent as human beings. So they do get affected when things of this nature happen to them. That is why when Rasulullah asked Amirul Mu'mineen and informed him of his shahadat, that will happen in the month of Ramadan, for example. Imam said to him, or Rasulullah said to Imam Ali, Kayfa sabruka ala shahada? O Ali, how are you going to show patience on as far as your shahadat is concerned? Imam responded by saying, O Prophet, this is a place for thankfulness, not doing sabr. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants me shahadat, I should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone showing sabr as far as my death is concerned. And similar is to our Prophet as well. Our Prophet, when he ascended to Mi'raj, ila samai, it was told to him, Inna Allah tabarak wa ta'ala yakhtabiruka fi thalathin. O Rasul, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test you with 3 things. Rasulullah said, what are those things? And Allah wants to see, لِيُنذِرَ كَيْفَ صَبْرُكَ. Allah will test you with 3 things, and Allah wants to see your sabr. So, Anbiya are also tested. Rasul is also tested. But of course, they're not living on the fringe. They're not living on the edge. So their iman is muhkam and mukammal. He said, Aslimu li amrika ya Rabbi. I'm all ears to your amr and your command. I'm taslim. And I'll put my head down as far as the, believing in what you have in store for me. He said, وَلَا قُوَّةَ لِي عَلَى الصَّبْرِ إِلَّا بِكَ. There's no quwwat and power that I have over sabr except what you have given to me. He said, فَمَا هُنَّ. What are those things? قِيلَ لَهُ. It was told to him, أَوَّلُهُنَّ الْجَوْعُ وَالْأَثْرَةُ عَلَى نَفْسِكَ وَعَلَى أَهْلِكَ لِأَهْلِ الْحَاجَةِ. Number 1 is the hunger. And the author of that hunger that your family and your loved ones will face after you especially, and especially when they are in need. He said, I'll do sabr on that. Number 2, وَالتَّكْذِيبُ وَالْخَوْفُ الشَّدِيدُ. You will be put to denial. You will be denied, and people will deny your nubuwwat. And there will be khawf shadid upon you. Rasulullah said, I'll show sabr on that as well. وَأَمَّا الثَّالِثَةِ. Number 3, he said, فَمَا يُلْقَى أَهْلُ بَيْتِكَ مِنْ بَعْدِكَ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. What will happen to your Ahl Bayt after you leave this world? Now, first 2 things Rasulullah said, as far as hunger is concerned, I'll do sabr. As far as personal denial, people will deny me and my nubuwwat, I'll do sabr on that as well. But the 3rd thing is what people will do to your Ahl Bayt after you depart this world. He said, what? Amma akhuka, as far as your brother Ali is concerned, فَيُلْقَى مِنْ أُمَّتِكَ الشَّتْمُ وَالتَّعْنِيفُ وَالتَّوْبِيخ وَالْحِرْمَانِ وَالْجُهْدِ وَالظُّلْمِ وَآخِرُ ذَلِكَ الْقَتْلُ. As far as your brother Ali is concerned, he will go through all those things. Ta'na, tashni, he will be slandered, he will be, cursed at, he will be sweared upon, and eventually it will lead to his shahadat. And then he says, وَأَمَّا إِبْنَتُكَ. As far as your daughter is concerned, فَتُزْلَمْ وَتَحْرُمْ وَيُوخَذْ حَقَّهَا غَصْبًا. As far as your daughter is concerned, she will face zulm, she will be deprived of her rights, her right will be taken away from her, usurped, and غَصْبًا الَّذِي تَجْعَلَهُ لَهَا. The one that you have bestowed upon. That is the fadak that was given to Janab Sayyada. وَتَضْرِبْ. And she will be beaten وَهِيَ حَامِلْ, while she is pregnant. وَيَدْخُلْ عَلَيْهَا وَعَلَى حَرِمَيْهَا وَمَنْزِلْهَا بِغَيْرِ إِذْنٍ. And people will enter into her house without the permission that they would have. Rasulullah responded, قَبِلْتُ يَا رَبِّي وَسَلَمْتُ مِنْكَ التَّوْفِيقِ وَالصَّبْرِ. O Rabb, all these masayib that you mentioned, I do sabr upon them. Of course, this is something which you have guaranteed. This is something which is according to your mashiyat. Of course, as I said, Anbiya, their iman is kamil. You and I is where we have the problem. Their iman is kamil. But still, the pain of knowing that what will happen to your son and your daughter after you leave this world. And that's what Rasulullah was informed ahead of time. That your daughter will be beaten. She will be in her house. And people will enter into her house without her permission. While she would hamil, she's pregnant as well, and she'll lose her child in that situation as well. Rasulullah said, "Oh Allah, I accept all the things that you have mentioned if they're going to happen, and I will display the utmost level of sabr." But of course, sabr is there for Rasulullah. But for Janab Fatimatu Zahra, and look at her musibat, that masa'ib fell upon her, that if they had fallen on days, they would have converted into the nights. Janab Sayyida endured so much pain, so much difficulty. The marhumin whose names were recited, they of course left this world while their loved ones miss them, and their loved ones have a difficult time forgetting the time that they may have spent with them. But nonetheless, they can say, yes, alhamdulillah, our mother, our father, our loved ones who left this world, we were able to take care of their last rituals. We were able to bury them without any difficulty. We were able to have their majlis-e-azaa for their soyam, for their chihlum, for their barsi. But come to the house of Janab Sayyida. Rasulullah has left this world. Sayyida, who is the Sayyida Kaunain. Rasul is Sayyidul Mursaleen. But there is an issue as far as the weeping and the crying of Janab Sayyida is concerned. Ala lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa sayalamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalibin yanqalibun. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Barilaha, oh Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Oh Allah, we've committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers. And please say Surah Fatiha for the following marhumin. Marhuma Narjis Bhai Pir Bhai, Marhuma Khairun Nisa Pyar Ali Jadavji, Marhum Mohsin Ali Kamalia, who passed away today in Dubai, as well as the following Ramzan Ali Farishta, Ibn Rajab Ali Farishta, and Fatima Farishta Binte Abdul Hussain Sagarwala. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن لم يلد ولم يولد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum Nabiullah, assalamu alaikum ya Habibullah, assalamu alaikum ya Khiratullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ziyarat Warith. Assalamu alaikum ya Warith Adam Safatillah, assalamu alaikum ya Warith Nuhin Nabiyillah, assalamu alaikum ya Warith Ibrahim Khalilillah, assalamu alaikum ya Warith Musa Kalimillah, assalamu alaikum ya Warith Isa Ruhillah, assalamu alaikum ya Warith Muhammadin Habibillah. Assalamu alayka ya warith Ali Amir al-Mu'minin Waliyillah. Assalamu alayka ibn Muhammad al-Mustafa. Assalamu alayka ibn Ali al-Murtada. Assalamu alayka ibn Fatimah al-Zahra. Assalamu alayka ibn Khadijah al-Kubra. Assalamu alayka ya Thar Allah wa ibn Thar wal-Witr al-Mawtur. Ashhadu annaka qad aqamta as-salat وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدهمات ثيابها وأشهد أنك من داعم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والهجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبي بكم موقن بشرايا ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع، صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباء، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله ووداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الناصر، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وعمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوتهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الأخ الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر، وأخو الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه، الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، وألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وأنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض طوس، علي بن موسى الرضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك شريك القرآن، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.